Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is subject of professional development, and today we are going to discuss about lecture number 28, which is about teaching adults means andragogy. The outlines of the lectures are: first of all, we will discuss about introduction, which will be about the andragogy means teaching adults, and then we will study about who is adult learner. And then we will discuss about learning process, why adult learns, adult learning theory, then pedagogy and andragogy, then principles of adult learning, then motivational learning and experiential learning, then problem solving, then immediate values, and then we will discuss utility of principles, and at the end we will discuss about warm-up. First of all, who is an adult learner? So remember that adult education, also called continuing education, any form of learning undertaken by or provided for mature men and women. In a 1970 report, the National Institute of Adult Education, which is in England and Wales, defined adult education as any kind of education for people who are old enough to work, vote, fight, and marry, and who have completed the cycle of continuous education, commenced in childhood. So adult education comprehends such diverse modes as independent study consciously, as pursued with or without the aid of libraries, broadcast programs, or correspondence courses, group discussion, and other mutual aid learning and study circles, colloquia, seminars, or workshops, and residential conferences or meetings, and full or part-time study in classes or courses in which the lecturers, teachers, or tutors has a formal leading role. An adult learner is a socially accepted person who is involved in any learning process. So remember that any adult learners who is involved in any learning process, so he is called adult learner. Most basically define adult education as the intentional, systematic process of teaching and also learning, by which persons who occupy adult roles acquire new values, attitudes, knowledge, skills, and disciplines. As a concept, adult education demarcates a subfield of education that is distinct from the latter's historical and still general identification with the former schooling of youth in primary and secondary schools, colleges, and universities. Once lacking the central social significance long recognized for this former schooling, adult education expanded rapidly after 1950, changing social, economic, and demographic forces, occasioned new educational forms and organizations, and new levels of adults' participation in existing forms. So adult education is now so widespread and important a feature of societies worldwide that it increasingly occupies the attentions of social scientists, policy makers, businesses, and the public. Then we discuss about the learning process. What does it mean? Here in picture, as we can observe that learners, then educators, educators to subject matter, and then using techniques by the learners becomes educators and then subject matter. So this is a learning process. To successfully use differentiated instruction, a teacher must first have a firm understanding of each of the cognitive components of the learning process, what they look like when they are working, and what the specific subcomponents of each look like when they are breaking down. Next, a teacher must develop a rich repertoire of strategies and tactics from which to pull the exact strategy or tactic that will address a specific breakdown for a specific task at the right moment, using a great strategy at the wrong time, or mismatching a strategy with breakdown for which the strategy will yield no gains, will frustrate students and teachers alike when the strategy fails to produce the desired results. So there are different interactive components of the learning process. That may be attention, memory, language, processing and organizing, graphomotors means writing, and higher order thinking. So these processes interact not only with each other but also with emotions, classroom's climate, behavior, social skills, teachers and family. So in order to engage, motivate and teach all learners at optimal levels, teachers must understand the learning process in general, understand and respond to the students' individual emotional and cognitive profiles, and select instructional strategies and tactics that are effective for diverse learners. So learning process can be any of the formal education, informal education, or corporate sponsored education. Paying attention, this is the first step in the learning anything. It is easy for most of us to pay attention to the things that are interesting or exciting to us. So it is difficult for most of us to pay attention to things that are not. When something is not interesting to us, so it is easier to become distracted, to move to a more stimulating topic or activity, or to tune out. The teacher's job is to construct lessons that connect to the learners, relating what is to be taught to the students' lives can accomplish this. Relate Romeo and Juliet, for example, to the realities in our communities of prejudice, unfounded hatred and gang wars, or relate today's discrimination to the diary of Annie Frank and holds class discussions of discriminations that students have personally experienced or witnessed. And physical movement can help to wake up a mind. When a student shows signs of interactions and inattentiveness and or restlessness, so teachers can provide the students with opportunities to move around. So many students with attention challenges actually needs to move in order to remain alert. So it is wise to find acceptable, non-destructive ways for these students to be active. Responsibilities such as erasing the board, taking a message to the office, and collecting papers can offer appropriate outlets for activity. Then we talk the memory. Memory is a complex process that uses three systems to help the person receives, use, store, and retrieve information. So the three memory systems are short-term memory, for example, remembering a phone number you got from information just long enough to dial it. Then working memory, keeping the necessary information files out on the mind's desktop while performing a task such as writing a paragraph or working a long division problems. And a long-term memory means the mind's ever-expanding file cabinet for important informations we want to retrieve over time. And children in schools have to remember much more information every day than most adults do. Adults generally have more specialized days. Mechanics use and remember mechanical information. Dentists use and remember information about dentistry and so on. So on the other hand, school expects that children become experts in several subjects. For example, math, language, science, social studies, or foreign language, the arts. So it is important to remember that when a student understands something, so it doesn't guarantee that he will remember it. For example, a person may understand a joke that he heard at a party on Saturday night, but he may have trouble remembering it when he tries to tell it to his friends on Monday. So, in order to enhance the likelihood that all students will elaborate on new information, so teachers should activate their prior knowledge and make new information meaningful to them. For example, a teacher may ask second graders how to divide a pane of brownies evenly among the 20 students in the class, and then connect their solutions to the concept of equivalence fractions, relating how algebraic equations need to be equal or balanced on both sides to the benefits of dividing candy or cookies evenly between friends and connects to prior knowledge. So students who have difficulty with the short-term and working memory may need directions repeated to them, giving directions both orally and in written form, and giving examples of what is expected with the help of students. So all students will benefit from self-testing. Students should be asked to identify the important informations, formulate test questions, and then answer them. So this tactic is also effective in cooperative learning groups and has been shown by evidence-based research to increase reading comprehensions. So why adult learns? This is an important question. Why is it so? Definitely there will be some reasons. So we have to find out that what are the reasons. We learn just because of different things, like to keep with the growing competitions. That's why we learn. That's why adult wants to modify themselves with the new technologies. And then for self-improvement, because most of the people, they want to improve themselves by equipping them with the newly and advanced technologies. Then other reasons that the people might be having the need of that things as a part of job training. Then some people want to increase their financial growth and benefits, and just some of the persons, they only want to acquire the new skills. Adult learning, this is different from the learning in primary and secondary schools. In high schools, teachers often take much of the responsibility for how students learn, encouraging learning with the class discussions, repeating key materials, creating study guides, and looking over students' shoulders to make sure no one falls behind. In college, most of the responsibility for learning falls on the students. So you are free to fail or succeed as you choose. So this implies as well as to how well you learn. So learning an academic subject means really understanding it, being able to think about it as meaningful ways and to apply that understanding is in a new situation. So this is very different from simply memorizing something and repeating it back on the test. Academic learning occurs most effectively in a circle of 4 steps. And those steps are preparing, absorbing, capturing, and reviewing. So what is adult learning theory? So we have to study about this learning theory. Like Malcolm Knowles in 1978 and then 1990s is the theorist who brought the concept of adult learning to the fore, and he determined the principles of andragogy. So major adult learning theories are like there are different theories when it comes to adult learners, and each theory has unique applications and techniques associated with it. So different theories and techniques will resonate better with students based on their primary learning styles. So some of the top learning theories in the adult learning space includes andragogy. So Malcolm Knowles popularized the concept of andragogy in 1980s. Andragogy, this is what? This is an art and science of helping adult learns. And Malcolm Knowles contrasted it with the pedagogy, which is the art and science of helping children learn. Knowles and the andragogy theory says that adults learners are different from children in many ways, including they need to know why they should learn something. They need internal motivations. They want to know how learning will help them specifically. They bring prior knowledge and experience that form a foundation for their learning. They are self-directed and want to take change. They want to take charge of their learning journey. They find the most relevance from task-oriented learning that aligns with their own realities. So andragogy learning theories focuses on giving students as an understanding of why they are doing something. Lots of hands-on experiences and less instructions so they can tackle things themselves. The andragogy adults learning theory isn't without criticism. Some suggest that the andragogy adults learning theory doesn't take other cultures into considerations well enough. While there are pros and cons, many students find andragogy is extremely accurate and helpful as they work to continue their education and learning. And if we compare the difference between pedagogy and andragogy, so definitely there is a difference. Pedagogy, this is the learning methods for young children, and andragogy, this is the teaching methods to teach adults. So we can conclude that pedagogy is the child-focused teaching approach, whereas andragogy, an adult-focused teaching approach, or formally pedagogy, is the art and science of helping kids learn, whereas andragogy is the art and science of helping adults learn. So education is the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits, while pedagogy, most commonly understood as the approach of teaching, refers most broadly to the theory and practice of education and how this influences the growth of learners. So Knowles' theory of andragogy, this is an attempt to develop a theory specifically for adult learning. In practical terms, andragogy means that instruction for adults needs to focus more on the process and less on the content being taught. And the differences between pedagogy, andragogy, and heterogogy, that pedagogy is teacher-led learning and andragogy is self-directed learning, and heterogogy takes an approach that different from both. In pedagogical environment, teachers determine what students will learn and how they will learn it. And if we take the examples of pedagogy, so one of the most powerful pedagogical examples is where students and teachers produce work and learning together. The teacher becomes more of mentor or coach helping students achieve the learning goal. Like if we discuss pedagogical and andragogical in respect of the learner, then in pedagogically we say that the learner is dependent upon the instructors for all learning. Then the teacher or instructor assumes full responsibility for what is taught and how it is learned. So the teacher or instructor evaluates learning. On the other hand, in andragogical, the learning is self-directed. The learner is responsible for his or her own learning, and self-evaluation is characteristics of this approach. And in the context of role of learner's experience, the learners come to the activity with a little experience that could be tapped as a resource for learning. The experience of the instructor is most influential. And in andragogical, the learners brings a greater volume and quality of experience. Adults are a rich resource for one another. So different experiences assure diversity in groups of adults. Experience becomes the source of self-identity. And then readiness to learn. Means in pedagogy, students are told what they have to learn in order to advance to the next level of mastery. And in andragogy, any change is likely to trigger a readiness to learn. The need to know in order to perform more effectively in some aspects of one's life is important, and ability to access gaps between where one is now and where one wants and need to be. In pedagogy and andragogy, we can also explain that it is the method of teaching children, while in andragogy, this is the method of teaching adults. Learners are independent in pedagogy and learners are independent in andragogy. Learners have less or no experience to the share, hence teaching becomes didactics. And in andragogy, learners are experienced, hence teaching involved discussions, problem solving, etc. So learners learns whatever the curriculum offers, while in andragogy, the content has to be modified according to the learner's need. And teachers are required to direct the learners, and the learners are self-motivated. Learners need teachers to guide them. And in pedagogy, learning is curriculum oriented, and in andragogy, learning is goal oriented. Then there are some principles of adult learning. Like adult needs to know why they need to learn something, and adult needs to learn experientially. And adults approach learning as problem solving, and adults learn best when the topic is of immediate value. Now, in other principles, learning should be motivational, experiential, problem solving, of immediate values. Then, in motivational learning, we can say that learning should be motivational. How? That learning should be meaningful. If the learning is meaningful, then it also becomes a motivational factor. The learners should be able to see the end results of any training program, because it is usually seen that every training programs, they have some aims or objectives. For example, if I attend at this training and perform better, I will get a hike in my salary. And in motivational learning scenario, like you are working in ABC company and a training program has been scheduled where you will be trained on MS Word application. Let us see the reaction of different employees who are shortlisted to attend the training program. Like in technical writers, so they should provide training on RoboHelp. That's what I need to know to be an efficient technical writer. Then a programmer. Looks like another boring training session. Gosh, I don't need training in MS Word. Anyhow, I use Notepad to scribble notes. Then content writers. This training program won't help me much. I'm quite competent in MS Office already. An instructional designer. She says that, oh great, I can brush up my MS Word knowledge in this training program. Then learning should be experiential. How? That learning should be asked to learn by exploring. It is highly effective in corporate training. Learning learned by doings. For example, a new application has been launched. You need to familiarize with it. You learn by experience. exploring. And if we talk problem solving, the learning should be solving any problem drives learning. A problem is posed so that the students discover that they need to learn something new before they can solve the problem. And here are some steps like defining a problem, then develop a plan, then implement plan, and then evaluate. In the immediate value, learning should be of immediate value, like the training programs should have direct bearing upon their jobs. The training program should be able to set up the job research process. And if we give a scenario like assume that you and your colleagues are part of training program which involves receiving training on typing lessons. So look at what some of the people in that organizations had to say. Okay, first of all, like first one says, I think I seriously need to attend this training session. Quick typing will make my work much easier. And the other says that typing lessons will sound great anyway. I type like a tortoise. I guess this training will help me hone my typing skills. Another person says that typing lessons, well, I don't need it because I don't have to type huge articles or write anything at all. So this is a complete waste for me. So then there is a utility of some principles like lay down clear objectives of the course, inform how they can make the most of training, and just to present learning materials that pose problems so as to induce learning. And then utility of these principles like include assessments and provide immediate feedback, and offer reward or certificates after a successful completion of the course, and give real life examples, simulation and experientials. Use diagrams wherever needed. And in warm-up, learning is a conscious purpose, we can say. Learning is a motivation driving, and we learn to keep up with the growing need of the industries, and we learn to compete, and we learn better where we are asked to express our experiences and our knowledge. This was all about this lecture here. If you have any problem, you can ask.